I think, first of all, what sets you apart is you're hands-on. You can ask those questions other people wouldn't have thought of.
This digital strategy that people need to look at.
It's a whole learning.
They just don't understand how the audience is on TikTok.
Companies just make content for content's sake. We took in a live interview as well, didn't we? You weren't going to give up on getting that person in on that day. You and the team were absolutely adamant and determined to make it work for the client.
We are very keen to foster those relationships. That trusted relationship has to happen over time. It doesn't just happen overnight. Greatness comes when you do things together.
I'm Lee Jones, Digital Content Manager for Mercia Asset Management, and I think we go back quite a way, don't we? Probably 16 or 17 years before the invention of the internet, probably. Started to know you, didn't I, like back Sale Shark days when you were a much thinner hospitality exec and served me my vegetable soup one night.
Well, there we go, yeah. What's your current role? What do you do now?
I'm the Digital Content Manager for Mercia Asset Management. So what I currently do is I kind of lead and support on all of the social media channels that we currently have at Mercia. I maintain the website, for example, so we use stuff like WordPress. If everyone kind of uses WordPress, but that's been a really nice learning for me. But overall, I am pretty much the lead on video and digital for them. So I'm editing and directing and shooting portfolio companies up and down the UK, pushing a spotlight on them and telling the UK and sometimes the world how great some of these SMEs are that we have in the country.
So before we get into the nuts and bolts of the tips and tricks of what you do today, let's just go and take a little bit of a look at your journey to where you are now.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of things that you've done in the past that were at the forefront of things at the time, and namely I'm talking about the Predators thing, the producer-editor life that you did at Man City and your life at Channel M and stuff like that. So let's start with Channel M and the kind of content that you were creating at Channel M. Sale Sharks or Sale...
Talking Sharks.
Talking Sharks, that was it, yeah, Talking Sharks.
People had other names for it.
yeah, if I remember rightly. But yeah, tell us what that was like and give us a little insight to the typical workflow back then.
Yeah, so I think I started at Channel M in 2005, 2006, where it was a very regional-based TV channel, and it was a lot of hard work to push out what we were pushing out with the resource that we had. So I went in as a sports editor, so we were looking after the programmes such as FC United, what you mentioned, Sale Sharks. We then moved on to a boxing half-hour magazine show. We moved on to Code 13, which was rugby league. And it was really, really weird because although we had a really good setup in there from an edit point of view, and we were on, what were we on? Avid. So we were on Avid back then.
P2 cards.
And I do not remember, oh no, sorry, I do. I remember one time where we uploaded a video to YouTube, you know. So back then it wasn't even thought of to push things digitally. And this was 2005. So in those 18 years, how quick things have moved.
Well, let's go from there to Man City.
We can go to IRB if you want.
Oh, well, yeah, there was the rugby, yes.
There's the rugby on Sky, yeah.
There was, in fact, where I
cut you
my
did
tooth as well.
Exactly. All right,
I just feel like I'm following you around a little bit.
Yeah, you are a bit, yeah. You're like my shadow. So I spent 4 years at Channel M, which was an unbelievable grounding because we didn't have that much resource. It kind of asked you to jump into loads of different roles on a daily basis. So, you could be a floor manager, you could be in gallery doing auto cue, you could be overseeing graphics, you could be editing, you could be on location. And that really did give me a brilliant understanding of how things came together. And I still use some of those learnings in my job now, you know, working backwards, script writing. And then after 4 years, I got a job with the IRB, or which is now known as World Rugby.
World Rugby, yeah.
So basically what that was, I was assistant producer putting together a half-hour show about the IRB and its great product that they have across the world that went on the Sky Sports channel, which then gave me a deeper understanding of how a show should be put together. We had a good understanding at Channel M how to put, I tried to think of this the other day, I think it was a 26-minute or 24-minute piece.
24 probably
24.
sounds right. 2-3 minute ads either side.
Yeah, and then, but then the Sky Sports show gave a real deep understanding. Like you were working with guys in audio, for example, who were mixing it. You were doing overdubs for translations. You had to make sure your script hit that time, whereas you had a little bit of grace with Channel M, but this was like bang on because of the regulations.
I did the voiceover for the German rugby captain on one
Oh,
time.
did you?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did, yeah. So I was- could do that quite well. I tell you what, the other thing as well, I think that opened us up a little bit as well, working down there, was an understanding of how the global sport movement worked and understanding the nuances of commercial delivery and all that kind of thing, because we were given an insight then how World Rugby fits in Germany, how it fits in
Correct.
New Zealand, how it fits within the model of everything, and then you started getting an understanding of delivering the certain narrative structures that the commercial sponsors needed and the partners needed, and the remits of the IRB and what they wanted to do. I keep saying World Rugby IRB, but what those things needed to deliver. And I think even then there wasn't much to do with YouTube and Facebook at that time either,
No,
was there?
you know, again, I sometimes look back on what I've done for World Rugby or IRB. What are we going to call it?
Both.
Both, World Rugby.
We're old school, so.
And I do remember there was more of an upload nature at World Rugby. So we did put a lot more on YouTube, but there was nothing on Twitter. There was nothing on Facebook. And you're talking 2010, I was there 2009 to 2011. And still, things weren't up and running. But from a commercial side, I think you're right. They were slightly, you could say, visionary in what they were doing. You had other sports doing some really good stuff from like a football perspective. But from a rugby perspective, they were like the leaders in what they were trying to achieve through this program. And it's funny thinking about it now. So the show went out on a Wednesday.
Correct.
And so we had to have the tape sent to London from Farnham on the back of a bike every Wednesday morning. And you think, wow, you know, surely that could have just been delivered digitally over, you know. But no, on the back of a bike.
I remember the archive room, absolutely chocker full of hard drives, to be fair, because we were still working digitally then. We were starting to, like I say, work digitally then. But there was that room, it was just absolutely full of hard drives. And you just think, that should be on a
cloud.
A dam somewhere, that you could easily get access to and things like that. And that's an interesting point, because, and we'll probably come back to that a little bit later when we look at how people can monetize their content now and how people can use digital growth strategies to sweat those assets, because they exist. And a lot of sports organizations don't realize that at the moment, and they don't kind of understand what they can do with that, especially when it comes to academy sides, youth sides, that potentially you could be looking at the next great thing that's going to come out of sport and stuff like that. So you'd had enough of being a southerner, right? And you decided it was time to come back up north.
It was time to go. It was just kind of, it was good timing. Because I spent 2011 in New Zealand with the Rugby World Cup.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So spent 6 weeks out there on the ground producing, and then when I came back, I had 2 weeks left of my contract. And it just so happened that the company that had the contract for World Rugby also had the contract for Manchester City. So I was kind of parachuted into Manchester City because they were looking for another Predator. So that's how I ended back in Manchester.
So for those that don't know what a Predator is, or they think they know what a Predator is.
It sounds pretty bad,
terrible.
but it's not.
but it ain't. And I think the thing that got me when I was learning what all this was, and then you look at the old-fashioned way of working in media, you had a cameraman, because there were no camera women back then. It was very few and far between. There were a few pioneering camera women, but those cameramen that were out there at the time, they didn't know how to do anything else. They didn't know how to light, they didn't know how to edit, they didn't know how to run the cable to their camera. They just knew how to point and do the iris and do the focus and all that other things and understand the composition, and they had that skill set. But with the onset of digital technologies, the demands of that camera operator then to understand how that shot is going to fit and edit became more and more important.
Yeah.
Because the times and editors all over the world will say, you know what I mean? Like
it was like that. Like, you know, we have shifted from a film everything to a shoot to edit mindset. Back in City, you know, we called it run and gun. So something happened, you just grabbed the PMW 200 from the shelf, made sure you had a microphone and a card in the back, and off you go, you know, and that was it.
And it's not the same as drama. You can't spend 20 cuts and 20 takes of trying to get the wonder goal again, or the wicket.
No, you've got one chance.
You've got one chance. You've got one chance only, and it's what you do with that afterwards and how you elaborate on that story afterwards that takes the creative skill set. Back in the old days, when when you almost had trials for Swindon. No, back in the old days, there was 3 television channels, right? And you and I are young enough to know that. And that's the choice we had, and that was it. And we didn't actually, the closest we could get to influencing that was phoning up Swap Shop and trying to get rid of our Monopoly board for something much better. Yeah. And that was it. That was as interactive as we got. And like within our lives back then, another interactive thing would have been the storybooks, where you read the story and you have to go down a corridor and you turn left or right. And
turn to page 76 or turn to page 7.
Yeah, you kept your finger in the page to see actually which page. What if? You know what I mean? And your branch narrative went down that way.
Yeah.
And that was it. And Mixmag came with a tape on the front. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And then it came with a CD on the front later on, and then it didn't come with a CD on the front. It came with a QR code on the front. You know what I mean? So now I think there's Spotify playlists now. Do you know what I mean? There's the whole shift in how digital has taken our journey. Some of the things still stay the same.
Absolutely.
Which is how the story gets told and how you consume the story.
My mate's band's just released CDs.
Yeah.
Like a month ago. They released their new album on CD.
And people are coming back to vinyl and stuff like that. Yeah. It's incredible. But I think when you look at how you communicate with an audience, or how that audience connects to you, it's very important that you don't do some of the things that we've seen major manufacturers do. And I'll use the example of Ford, who over in America will spend 100, 150, 250,000 pounds or dollars on making a car advert and expect it to do well on TikTok. They just don't understand how the audience is on TikTok.
Correct.
At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, can still be the CEO that's on LinkedIn at 5 o'clock in the evening.
It's a whole learning.
There's a whole different way of connecting to that same person. So marketing wise, back in the day, you bought an advert out, you stuck it in the paper. Doesn't matter what time the person saw that advert, it was still the same person. Whereas now, we've grown and developed around digital connectivity in such a way that we behave and operate differently on different platforms.
So what if you didn't put that piece of video that you didn't think was going to fit on TikTok?
So let me tell you a piece of video that you thought might not have done very well, and it did really, really well.
Go on.
When you were expecting the kid.
Yes.
And you were right in the middle of a video, weren't you?
I was, yeah.
Go on, tell us that story.
This was 2018.
So you abandoned Man City.
I abandoned Man City for a rival down the M62, and on a shoot, my wife was heavily pregnant with our first, and on a shoot with Jordan Henderson and Trent Alexander-Arnold. So I'm leading the shoot, and
was it a game or something?
No, it was a game. It was on a strand called Bezies. If Colin is clever enough, he could put a card right here on YouTube. And how it happened was we had one of the, they were kind of like sat behind each other, not knowing. So to drown out the answers from the other person, we put headphones on the person behind, who was Jordan Henderson. And I gave him my phone and I said, there's Spotify. I said, just listen to whatever you want to listen to. We'll talk to Trent for 5 minutes and then we'll just switch you guys over. Anyway, now what I knew, and this is the giveaway, right? It doesn't come across in the video, but I knew from earlier on, that I think the night before, that my wife, her waters had broke, right? But it wasn't like a water break. So she said to me, you go to work, I'll go to the hospital with my mum, and we'll just check it all out, kind of thing. I said, right, that's fine. But let me know what the hospital says, So I'm sat there, listening to Trent give his answers, and then all of a sudden, Hendo puts his hand up. And I was like, like he's in school or something. I'm the teacher. That was weird. And he said, are any of your wives pregnant? And I was like, yeah, my wife's pregnant. And he went, you better go. I was like, what's going on? So I had a look at the message and it said, my waters have broke. I'm at the hospital. So, of course, I was kind of like, I knew the backstory. I knew that everything was okay. It was just confirmation that the waters had broke. And anyway, I just kind of looked at him and went, I think she'll be all right for 20 minutes. Let's finish this first. And of course, to him, he's like, are you saying you're just going to carry on with this shoot when you should be like already in your car down the motorway? But that was the context. So anyway, what we didn't know at the time was that went silly viral.
Well, you were rolling. That's the whole point, wasn't it? You were actually rolling.
We were rolling on it, yeah. And I think I was allowed to use the clip on my social. And no disrespect to Jordan or to Trent, but it was probably the best bit of the shoot. But yeah, that was my little story that is a bit of a conversation icebreaker sometimes.
Let's look at some companies now who don't understand that space, and you look at, they've just got a really good Insta and there's lots of great pictures on it, but their LinkedIn, there's nothing on their LinkedIn, there's nothing in Facebook, there's nothing on other channels. Their website really doesn't reflect on how hard they work and stuff. This digital strategy that people need to look at, there's a lot of companies out there that don't have one. They struggle to understand how companies like Badgering Coombs, with our digital prowess and our video content creation prowess, can actually help them with that. And what we're finding is that it's very difficult for us to communicate all these years of experience. Yeah. Or it's very difficult to communicate.
Sorry.
It's right. We've got an AI burp filter that we can take those things out.
Yeah, thank goodness.
What we struggle with is trying to communicate with people that don't quite understand the way that we do. And how do you take something that we've grown up with, our digital prowess and our understanding of that, and it's how you communicate how to solve their problem that they don't actually realise they have. Because a lot of them don't realise that they have this problem. Yeah. So therefore, they go down the traditional marketing route, but then the traditional marketing agency says, you need a video. And they go, yes, we need a video. Then,
but of what?
Of what?
Film this.
What does it need to do?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's that where, and I see this where companies just make content for content's sake because they think they need to put something on social as a presence, but it's not. It's like, do you have any content pillars, for example? Do you have anything that you can hang your piece of content off of? Is there something you can make a little series about or a strand? One of the biggest things as well that you've got to bear in mind is consistency. I think it's key across any social is consistency. So
just going to jump in on you there.
Yeah.
Consistency is probably one of the most important bits.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So let's look at, we look at podcasts, for example. There's no point in doing one podcast. You need to commit to a year at least of podcasts.
Every week.
That consistency. One of the biggest challenges we have in this world that we're in now is cost affordability. How do you convince a company to be consistent with the spend on creating video content week in, week out, that don't necessarily have the kind of budget to be spending a couple of £1,000 a week on content creation?
Yeah.
How do you sell and convince the people to do that?
It's the long game. It's not short. You're not going to, again, we'll go back to the viral thing. You're not going to film a video like we're doing now and clip it up and stick it on social, and all of a sudden Badgering Coombs is going to be inundated on their inbox with jobs because you filmed something like this. It's not going to happen. It's that steady payoff, and we see it at Mercia. Like the numbers grow year on year, and it's the year on year you're looking for. It's not the day by day or the week by week or even the month by month. It's the year by year you're looking at, and that's how I know that what I'm doing is working. For one, it's being engaged by people that we want it to be engaged by. It's being looked at by the people we want it to be looked at. And it's sending the right message out as well. But yeah, it's one of them where this business, I'm not saying you, I'm saying you plural, it's expensive. And yes, some companies might not be able to afford to have you guys in every 2 weeks to film a brand new shiny video for marketing purposes. But if you're going to take you on for a day, you make sure you get the most out of what you're paying you to get it done in a day.
Tell us, in your own words, without the gun pointing to your head, your experience of working with Badgering Coombs and why you feel it might be different from working with other video agencies and stuff like that, and what sets us apart.
So I think, first of all, what sets you apart is you're hands-on, right? You're proactive. You can see, you can ask those questions that other people wouldn't have thought of. So we used you for the Mercia Portfolio Summit. Was it a November time? I remember it was cold, right?
It was cold. It's always cold in this
We'll say it was
country.
November. It was November. November the 16th, I think it was, last year. And we got in contact with you because we wanted to live stream certain sections of our summit across LinkedIn. So got the sign off, spoke to you, which was what we wanted to get out of it. You then gave some really good pointers in regards, right, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? No, but that sounds good, let's do it. I think what was really, really good was you guys took on our running order. Then you got me in for a day, I think, in here to run through all of the graphics. We tested the live stream. We took in a live interview as well, didn't we, from, I can't remember where it was now.
Yes, yeah, from
London.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's fair to say we had problems, but it wasn't on our side. It was on the interviewee side, but we sorted it. Yeah. You weren't going to give up on getting that person in on that day. I remember that. And I thought, have we gone too far here? Can we get him in? Am I going to have to go back to someone and go, oh, we can't get him in. We're just going to have to bring him in on Zoom, for example. But you and the team were absolutely adamant and determined to make it work for the client. I remember the whole kind of load-in day that you went in early morning, or was it night before? I can't remember. Early morning, I think it was.
Early morning, yeah. I think we got in early doors, yeah.
We walked in there, and what was great is that we turned up and everything was ready. And I think that's what you want. I didn't want that stress. That's your stress to deal with, right? This is why I delegate very well. That's your stress. All the client wants to do is to walk in and know that they're 100% guaranteed the output that they asked for with you guys, and you did it on the day. I think we took in the live, didn't we? We took in the live interview, which worked seamlessly, I think. The room was pretty much, I think, I like to say in awe of having this person live on the screens around them. And the two-way conversation as well, which, you know, it looks easy when you see it, but it's not easy from a tech point of view. I think then we had a camera op with me just sweeping up a few voxes, which was, it was great because we really did leverage that footage across social, and it worked really, really well. We also got the photography as well. There was some photography that was taken.
Correct.
And all in all, it was the team knew what they were doing throughout the day. Fortunately, you knew what you were doing, which helped everyone. But at the end of it as well, I remember people were coming up to myself and to Alison, who is my boss, and just saying how well they really enjoyed the day with all the AV and with the tech. And that was from our portfolio, but internally as well at Mercia, they really did enjoy doing a live event with all the tech and with you guys as well, which, you know, kudos to you. And I'm not just saying this because I'm here and you're a mate and I'm in front of a massive sign that says Badgering Coombs, but the trust, you have to instill that trust in the client, and you definitely did with us then on that day.
Look, and even though I'd known you for a while and stuff like that, just doesn't change. That's the whole point. It doesn't matter if I've known you for a while or I've only met you yesterday. It still resonates. Is that's the kind of company we are. We are invested in your success, not in ours as much. We should be invested in our success. We are. But the client always comes first, and that success always comes first.
And it was the skill set and the knowledge of the team as well that really fed into what you were when you were holding court that day behind the scenes. But it was one of them, and I sat with you from a producer, kind of making sure that everything was hitting times and the graphics were on and everything else. It just worked really, really well, and I think our friendship as well worked.
Oh God,
that helps.
And relationships are important in any form of business, and I think going in there to film one piece of content for a client, you don't get to create that relationship together. You don't get to go on that journey together, and we are very keen to foster those relationships. So look, tell us. So for those other companies, those other investment companies out there, don't use them. Only we want to use them. But all those other companies out there that are struggling to connect their stories to the digital space, and that they need to use Badgering Coombs, what kind of things can you say from your experiences that will help them make the decision to come and use us? First
of all, you own all your own equipment, so there's no extras being put onto an invoice at the end of the day. The flat rate is the flat rate that you've already agreed with. There's not going to be any surprises. What have you got? 10 staff here, all really well versed in what they do, and I've had first-hand experience in 3 different situations with you, and I had not one complaint about what's come out the other side and what we've used it for. I think as well, use video, use digital. You might not know it, but you need it. And what you guys don't know about a situation or a challenge that's put in front of you, it's not worth talking about, because you guys, what I really like about it is when people ask the outside of the box questions that you haven't thought of. And I think that's where you and your team come in, because that really takes it from like an average shoot to a really good shoot, is those questions that you might not have thought of. So yeah, being proactive, being pragmatic, being creative with your equipment, it all adds to being a really, really brilliant production company to go to.
I think it's important to say, I think, for us, that if I was you and I was hiring in a production company, I'd want to make sure they cared about my product just as much as I do. And that's the point. I think that we become invested in the success of the thing, because we don't just wipe our hands off it because the day's finished. Do you know what I mean? We want to make sure that everything around the creation of that content, your guests, your interviewees, you know, the venue you're using, your stakeholders, are all getting the same type of service.
Correct.
High quality, invested in success.
Yeah.
When this was suggested, I straight away said this has got Colin's fingerprints written all over it.
We've been looking at the health and safety implications of getting you to zip wire off the type of Blackpool Tower into the cricket ground. That would be a good one.
Completely changed the way I commentate. Completely changed the way I commentate. To be able to speak to players from in here, from the ground over to India, mid-game, close of play, that was absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I was quite nervous about it. Everybody appreciates what level we've got to here.